Daniel Kim.
And on tonight's broadcast of DDS News, we'll be addressing the Syrian refugee crisis as well as the marijuana legalization in Massachusetts.
Also, we will be discussing Donald Trump's Muslim database proposition and base jumping.
Recently, there's been an influx of Syrian refugees fleeing to neighboring countries, and more recently, the Western developed world. This is because ISIS and ethnic tensions between terror groups are instilling fear into the civilians and inspiring them to leave the country.
In fact, 95% of the refugees are moving to the neighboring countries, while only 5% are moving to the Western countries and European countries.
This is quite sad because the neighboring countries around Syria are less wealthy and are not able to accommodate for the intense amounts of Syrian refugees, whereas the Western, more developed nations are obviously capable of housing them but are just choosing not to.
Many of the states are outright refusing to take any refugees, including the United States, if Trump is to become president. Trump is very unwilling to take any refugees and is proposing to install a wall around the United States in order to keep out illegal immigrants.
The only European nation to budge at all with their decision is Germany, and this was only after a Syrian boy was found dead on a beach in Turkey. After this picture was circulated throughout the media, Germany announced to the world that they would be preparing to take in more than 800,000 refugees in 2015. That's more than all of Europe took in 2014 put together.
This is pretty hypocritical of them, considering a few days later, a new border control was posted a few days later. And most of this help from towards the refugees is from the civilians and very little political help. Next, in Massachusetts, the Cannabis Regulation and Taxation Act of 2016 will allow for the legal personal use and possession of marijuana.
If this bill is to be passed, there would be numerous cannabis stores opened up throughout the state of Massachusetts. And this would be great for the economy of Massachusetts and the nation as a whole, because it would bring in millions in tax dollars through the recreational sale of marijuana.
Lots of millennials will be voting for the legalization of marijuana. So in the presidential years, more of the youth population will be voting for the president and be more involved in the voting of their country's laws.
Wow, that's really great. Now, not everybody agrees with the legalization of marijuana. The governor believes there is no reason to legalize marijuana. However, he does not doubt the use of medical marijuana for the sake. How do you think this bill will affect Massachusetts economically?
I think in the short term, it will affect Massachusetts in a positive way. Typical to most bills of this nature, it provides additional tax income for the state to utilize for social services, infrastructure, business development, and other opportunities for growth economically. That I think is a short term. The long term, I have the opinion that it would be overall detrimental to the economic condition of the state, because my belief is that the legalization of marijuana leads to addiction, leads to long-term, I guess you could say, absenteeism associated with people's jobs and professions, and it will lend itself to be a negative in the long run.
Okay, what do you think about the social impact?
Well, again, the immediate impact is going to be positive, and I see it as a positive socially, because basically the state's allowing their citizens to have more freedom of choice. And freedom of choice is what we all want in life. The more freedom, the more choices, the better. So I believe that will have a positive impact on the state for that reason.
Thank you for your time. Also recently, in the newest presidential debate, Trump has suggested a mosque surveillance system as well as a Muslim database. What does this say about the way he interprets the Bill of Rights and the rights that all Americans have?
I think he's completely disregarding the First Amendment, which obviously gives each citizen privacy laws. And is there not a correlation between his Muslim database and the Nazi Germany Jews having to register into the systems?
There seems to be a correlation. I'm not entirely sure why Mr. Trump thinks it's okay to violate the First Amendment rights, which explicitly give us the freedom of religion, and by demanding a Muslim database, how do you think that the civilians are going to react to that? Like, how would Muslims react to being forced to do that?
I think there'd be more of a negative reaction from the Muslims, and also whenever Trump is asked of this correlation between these Nazi Germany Jews and the treatment of American Muslims, he is refusing to give a proper answer back to any of the reporters.
I think that says something about Trump and the way he thinks. It also seems that other presidential candidates are arguing against Trump and his policies because they believe that there is an extreme violation of religious liberties. I would say that I and most of the American population would agree with those people. Muslims must be outraged.
So what are your thoughts on this matter?
I think it's kind of messed up in reality. You know, Donald Trump is a pretty radical individual, and I feel like it may be appealing to the people that he wanted to appeal to, but the act of surveilling Muslims and trying to create a database in itself is something that's unethical and not moral in the very ideas of what America has to offer.
So how do you think this will affect other Muslims?
Well, I know for a fact that me and fellow of my friends who are more active over politics are not very happy with it. But I've seen some recognition. In fact, I saw a Muslim girl on Facebook post a picture where I'm willing to be surveilled or whatever Donald Trump wants to do. I'm willing to do that just to prove that I'm not a radical and that not all of us are like that. I think that it's a method to bring the community together.
Mm-hmm. So do you think this will affect Trump's campaign in a negative way?
Well, he was not going to get the votes from Muslims before. He's not going to get it after. Probably helped him a little bit, trying to get a couple more radical people away from these other neoconservative people.
All right, thank you. We'll go to our next interview right after this. Being a Muslim yourself, what are your thoughts on this matter?
I feel like Donald Trump doesn't truly represent what America's about. I don't think he's Christian. I don't think he represents American Christianity. Because Jesus taught his followers that you must care for everyone, no matter what religion they are, if they're a criminal or not, and what they believe in. Donald Trump doesn't represent that idea, and I believe that many American politicians now don't represent that as well. Yes, Muslims are not Christians, but still, Christianity teaches people to care for the people. Donald Trump teaches people to hate other people. He feels hatred, not love.
How do you think this will affect other Muslims?
I feel like other Muslims are outraged by what he's saying in the media. He's completely slamming all minority groups except the group of his own. And I feel like that doesn't represent what America is or what America should be about.
All right, then how do you think this will affect Trump's campaign?
In the primary season of his campaign, I think he will gain more supporters because there are many radical voters in the Republican Party that are voting in the primary election. However, if he wins the primary election and moves on to the general election, I think he will lose in a landslide because no one will support the idea of deporting 11 million immigrants, surveilling mosques, or building a wall against Mexico.
All right, thank you, Asim, for this interview. And back to you in the studio.
Base jumping is an activity only a select few take part in. Right now we have Daniel in a bridge in West Virginia interviewing some of these base jumpers.
"364 days a year, the United States government has announced that base jumping is legal in the United States. However, one day in the United States for 6 hours, the base jumping has been pronounced legal for all citizens to be able to base jump. Now we have one person here that's getting pumped up and ready to base jump right now and see what her thoughts on this. Sir, can we have an interview of what it's like to be a base jumper?
Of course. Well, it used to be to where you could just come base jump anytime you wanted, but then I understand that due to safety restrictions they needed to make this activity illegal. But I also think that it's really cool that the United States government leaves it open to interpretation, that we can sometimes stretch the rules a little bit and allow for a little bit of freedom. It's just really cool, and I approve of how the government does things like that. You know, they reward the citizens for having good behavior.
All right, thank you for your concerns on this matter. All right, now back to you, Daniel, to the studio.
Thanks, Daniel.
Base jumping at national parks is usually illegal, but supporters say this is an example of how the government controls people's liberties when a dangerous activity is involved. That's all for tonight's broadcast. I'm Stephen Robinson.
And I'm Daniel Kim.
Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Stephen Robinson.
And I'm Daniel Kim.
And on tonight's broadcast of DDS News, we'll be addressing the current dilemmas of the Syrian refugee crisis and Massachusetts weed legalization.
We'll also be discussing Donald Trump's...
And on tonight's broadcast of DDS News, we'll be addressing the current dilemmas of the Syrian refugees. That doesn't sound grammatically correct.
In fact, 95% of these refugees are moving to...
You didn't even let
Yeah,
me.
you didn't. You said
didn't
my
let me-
part.
You didn't let me finish.
Yeah, but you said my part.
Did I? Okay. Now, about the Syrian refugee crisis. There's been an abundance of Syrian refugees fleeing Syria. Okay. Dude, this job would be so fun.